Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this wonderful webinar brought to you by Henry Stewart Events. As Theo said, today we're going to talk about putting the pieces of the Martech stack puzzle together. It's a mouthful, the title, as well as a challenge for all of us working in Martech and DAM to put these pieces together. So I'm joined today by a wonderful panel of experts. A power panel of women in tech, and with the founder and CEO, chief architect of Cyangate, Bulant Dugan. So I will introduce each of our panelists and allow them to tell a little bit about themselves. And then we'll go on to some housekeeping and agenda. But first, let me introduce Christy Klein. Christy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Christy Klein. I have 25 years experience in enterprise content management and digital asset management. I've worked in technology and software development, professional services and consulting, CPG, and retail industries. My DAM experience runs the gamut of both business-facing and tech-facing roles, such as architecture, software selection, implementation, product management, process reengineering, tool adoption, taxonomy development, and governance.
Great, thank you so much. That's a lot of experience, many years of expertise. Next, may I please introduce Jessica. Jessica, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Berlin. I've been working in creative services management and digital asset management for about 20 years now. I've done everything from soup to nuts within DAM, most recently for the American Cancer Society and Stanley Black & Decker.
Awesome, thank you. And Meg, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Meg Morrissey. I am a taxonomist, librarian, and DAM expert. I'm currently the DAM manager at United Airlines. I've been in DAM for a little over a decade, so I guess I'm the new kid on this panel. I've only been in for 10 years. And DAM has been a part of every role that I've played. I've organized assets, managed integrations, worked with enterprise level data, built out metadata models, and worked with workflows. I've been at a vendor. I have been in-house with custom integrations or custom DAMs, and I've just kind of been all over CPG, media and entertainment, insurance, you name it. And I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Lots of experience in 10 short years with DAM, and we're excited to hear your opinions. And last but not least, may I introduce Bulant Dugan, who is the founder and chief architect of Cyangate. And Bulant, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I've been also in the industry for about 25 years, so I am not as young as Meg, but I've been around for some time. And I also worked as a vendor previously. Now I'm back to being a vendor. What we have done over the years is we have built Cyangate to be a services company, and in the last couple of years, we have also transformed it into a products company with our OneTech solution. And I have also seen many different marketing technologies put together, worked on integrations, worked on building DAM systems, and across the board, I can say that it has been always exciting and interesting because it changes everywhere we go. There are new technologies, new ideas, different ways of using DAM. So hopefully this puzzle of putting everything together will be easier after this panel, or at least we will be able to share our experiences with the audience today.
Great, exactly. The whole goal of this webinar is to allow these panelists to share their experience, tips and tricks. You have an opportunity to ask questions. Any of your burning questions, please submit them in the chat and we will do our very best to get to them. We are keeping this conversational, so we have a few questions we're going to ask the panelists, and then we will kind of keep the conversation going from there to fill in the blanks. But now that you've learned a little bit about our panelists, let's learn a little bit about you. We have a very short poll to understand some of the industries in which you are working in. So if we can do the first poll, please. All right, let's give it just a second. Let's see what's coming up here. CPG is winning. Nope, other is winning. Give it one more sec. All right, let's end the poll and share the results. Can you guys see the results? It looks like 43% of the responses are other, right? Then next we have media, CPG, and then we have education and manufacturing. Great. If we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, we went through the agenda with the housekeeping and introductions. Let's start with the first question. What is the role of digital management, digital asset management in your organization? We're going to show the Martech landscape slide and learn a little bit about, take a look at all the different assets there. And then we're going to start with Christy to ask her, tell us a little about the role of DAM in your organization and in your experience.
All right, did you want me to wait to go to the next slide?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can see
Maybe I can also talk about the next slide. What we have seen over the years is that the marketing technology landscape grew significantly. It shows that by 2024, compared to just 13 years ago, there's a 9,000% growth. It's significant. You can actually read the application names in the first 2011 landscape slide, and 2024, the Martech map became, you can't even read it anymore. It's so small. There are hundreds, not hundreds, but thousands of applications now in the Martech ecosystem. And this is constantly growing, especially now with the AI being added. It's significantly growing with many different applications and uses of technology within the Martech space. So with that, maybe Christy, you can talk about what has been your experience with the DAM within all these different applications, and what was DAM's role in the positions you work with?
Sure, Balan. When I first started with DAM, I was the business owner of an enterprise DAM that was already 8 years old at the time. And even though it was an enterprise DAM, it had only a handful of marketing users and some product content managers. I was told it was used as a means to an end, where the digital assets had to go through our system to either hit the marketing print production or the product pages on the e-commerce site. So right there, that should tell you it was a means to an end. They didn't really care much about the DAM. So there was not a lot of excitement or confidence in the system. So from that point forward, it was my mission to modernize the DAM technology and increase awareness and adoption of the tooling to show them how powerful it could be. But like many people on this call, I would imagine, we didn't receive much funding, so we had to make do with what we had. And so we first set forth on assessing what we had, what we could get rid of, what we were missing, and we had to lean heavily into business process and setting policies and standards for the content, ultimately putting in place some and operationalizing governance. But believe it or not, it took another 5 years before we actually received approval and funding to modernize our DAM. This is when we went through a very thorough software evaluation. We went through a really lengthy process of implementation. And then the thing about it, though, was that you would have thought that building, or at least I thought, building excitement and adoption of the new system was not as it was going to be difficult, but it wasn't. I think it was people were so excited to have new technology after, what's that, almost 13 years. They're like, give us something new, whatever it is. But after that initial implementation, the challenge then came into continuing to build that user base, continuing to keep it relevant, consolidating all the assets from the organization. As I mentioned, it was an enterprise DAM, so it was not just for one business unit, but to continue that work. And then to continuously improve the technology based on feedback from our users. So it was a long answer, but hopefully that shows the experience and challenges that we faced with DAM along the way. Jessica or Megan, you got something to add about your experiences?
Sure. So for me, um, I've kind of been brought in often at kind of the starting point of when an organization's wanted to take the different siloed, uh, I won't call them dams, but siloed systems that they had been running and create either a global or truly enterprise-wide system. And ultimately, it's to better manage their brand and really develop their e-commerce success in some cases. Um, for us, it's been about housing a lot of that final marketing content, whether it's photos, videos, graphics, audio, brochures, manuals, logos, and working, closely with different cross-functional teams, whether it's creative, e-commerce, sales, PIM, web, digital marketing. Every company has different departments and different things that they call those departments. But I often think of DAM as kind of the center of that, like a bicycle wheel. DAM's in the middle, and you've got all these spokes that come off of it, and those are all the different departments and systems that are pushing or pulling data. And kind of the challenge has always been being the cat herder in many regards, as to either herding content or herding people and processes, and trying to get everything to kind of work together as one. DAM sits in different places and different organizations, but ultimately, it's got the same kind of end goal, no matter where you are, as just trying to create that single source of truth and, be that kind of point in the ecosystem that content is flowing to. And that's where, obviously, where we all as DAM professionals come into play, and making sure that organizations understand what all that means, which is always the toughest part of all of it, is kind of just explaining the who, what, where, and why to it all.
Meg, anything to add?
Yeah, it took me a second to re-find the mute button. I have kind of worked across, across industries, and marketing is everywhere. And each sector, each industry might have their own regulations or things that you have to consider when publishing, when doing marketing and pushing that out. I worked for an insurance company in a past life, where we built out approval workflows, because you have to have legal approval before pushing an ad or before, doing a marketing campaign, because there are so many regulations around that. So we built out an approval workflow that allowed the marketing team to approve assets for distribution, and the legal team to do that, because it had to go through those additional levels of review and for compliance. We also had, retention schedules for things, because of legal requirements, and you can build that into your DAM. And that was very important for streamlining this, because otherwise you end up with so many different systems and too many sign-ons, too many implementations. Integrations are beautiful. More integrations than necessary are redundancies and extra work and extra money out of your budget for, could be used in what you're actually there for, connecting with your consumers. At United, we have that single source of truth that Jessica mentioned. United Airlines is very proud of the fact that if you see a flight attendant on a billboard, that's an actual flight attendant who could be on your next flight. That is not a model. And because of that, we need to make sure that we understand who this person is. Have they retired? Do we need to make sure that we've got active employees up there, and make sure that we are cognizant of, if for any reason someone does not want their likeness to be used for something, DAM allows us to very quickly locate that person, and pull them down and put someone else up. We also have a thing where sometimes a particularly, photogenic flight attendant or pilot, we want to make sure they're not on too many things. And this came up in a few other companies with marketing. We do want to repurpose images. We don't want to use them across multiple campaigns where it just might not resonate. It might not be as impactful.
So I can add a little bit to that. I think what you're explaining is not a surprise to any of us that has been in the space for some time. That DAM has been used as the initially as the final resting place for assets, right? But then as you get more mature in your journey with the dam becomes a lively area. It's not the cemetery anymore. It's becoming a lively area where things are moving in and moving out. And Meg, you have given great examples of how dam also handles the compliance perspective of many of the industries, such as pharma is a big one, the hospitals and those type of things. Same thing that you just mentioned, we went through with a hospital customer of ours, where you can have a brand ambassador for the hospital who is an oncology patient, and unfortunately that patient may uh, pass away, and you do want to go back and make sure that all of those are removed from your marketing materials. This is similar to pharma. In pharma, you have to go through all the regulatory components, uh, and it has various other aspects to the dam. Dam becomes a building block for your marketing content. Nowadays, everybody in the pharma is trying to get to that modular content concept where dam houses all the modular pieces of content that gets assembled into larger content, because managing all those modular pieces and checking the compliance on those modular pieces helps significant time savings to check the end product at the end. So DAM has worked its way up, I think, in the marketing map to be one of the key players and the key components of a Martech stack, where in the past it was just one of the components. And when I first started this around 2000, it was mostly considered as whoever had made money from content had to have a dam. Either that was media and entertainment companies, or it was the publishing companies. But it evolved in over the years that anyone who does marketing needs to have a dam. Uh, Making sure you have the rights properly handled makes sure that you do have a dam, and then touching all the other components like e-commerce you guys mentioned, or the product information like the PIM systems, it makes them the central key element in the marketing ecosystem now. Did we lose Erica? Maybe. But so with that, I want to move on. Maybe Erica is back. Okay. We can
Eric is
move on.
having technical difficulties, but yes, thank you so much, guys, for jumping in there. Let's go to the next slide, because as we talk about how DAM's role has changed and touches so many different elements in the MarTech landscape, let's look at some examples of where DAM, integrates with other solutions that we all are very familiar with. So really just, to reiterate what everyone has said, those of us who work in DAM and who work in MarTech, have so many different applications that we use every day. As Bulent said, it started with just DAM, and then now it's kind of ballooned out to all these other areas. Any surprises there, guys? Anything that, this is just an example of some of the things that touch. Usually there's creative services in here, for example. Anything else that you work with on a daily basis?
I don't see a piece of the pie for taxonomy management or data management. And, as a librarian, that's always very important, but it also allows for automation. And when you've got a large company, enterprise level metadata, you want to take advantage of that. Your single source of truth for data might not be you. It shouldn't be you, honestly. Like most of the time, you don't want it to be in the DAM. You want that single source of truth to be a PIM, or you want it to be a taxonomy management system, something along those lines, maybe a data lake you can pull from. But including that, I think, is really important for scalability.
Right.
And
Social,
sales and, oh, sorry.
social platform is what I realize we're missing here, that there are so many cases now to push content to social platforms, like the Hootsuite or Sprinkler type of platforms, or even directly to LinkedIn, Twitter, those type of areas. Jessica,
Yeah,
you
I
were
was
saying?
going
Yeah,
to add. Oh, go
I was just going to add, and it maybe can be folded into, the productivity kind of section there, but, say sales enablement tools that people are doing, putting things together, pulling content from the dam.
Joe Pet is an example
Yes,
for that, I think.
yes, yes.
Yeah, and I would add to that then your creative suites, right? You've got project management and you've got your content management systems, but what about your design tools?
Right. And nowadays it's almost a guaranteed component that comes with the DAM systems. If it's missing that, it's not a DAM system almost, right? If you don't have that creative suite integration, every call I get into, people ask, does it work with Adobe? And we say, of course it does. Nowadays, everybody works with the creative suite because you have to have that. Otherwise, you will have, again, the cemetery where not live data, but the dead assets for archival will end up, which is another use case, but it's not when you're talking about marketing, that's not what you want. With the best value out of your dam is not there.
Right, all great points, and I think this just illustrates a small sample of some of the elements that are so core to working in DAM and the Martech stack. Let's go to the next slide, and we're going to talk about asset creation. Oops, yeah, asset creation. What is the digital asset life cycle? It's a big part of DAM. So let's start with Jessica. What are some tips you can share about asset creation and the asset lifestyle?
I would life,
Lifestyle.
life cycle. Yeah, I would say the biggest tip is consistency. And I know we're going to get to this, but the governance of the asset life cycle, creating those guidelines, whether it's naming conventions, whether it's file standards and requirements. It makes it easier if you're putting content into the dam at its, highest quality, for them, the dam, to do what a dam does and be able to create those different download variations and ways to distribute that content. I think that would be my biggest tip, is creating those consistencies across the content creation process.
And I'll add to that. I always think that a lot of the companies are missing on tying that creative process into the dam. In many cases, the creative process starts all the way, either if it's a product, it can be in the product lifecycle management system, or it can be a campaign management system. It can be even your project management system, where you're lining up or getting requests from the rest of the enterprise. Can you create me a presentation? Can you create me a new banner? This and that. All of those capture so much information that can be fed into the digital asset management system.
Yes.
So that creation process should not be just uploading a file into the dam, but it should incorporate all of the data created from the ideation phase all the way into the final content.
Yeah, people forget to bring DAM in till too late in the process, I think, often, where when you're talking about the campaign, when you're planning out the content and the assets that you're going to build in a campaign, that's when you need to bring DAM into the conversation and start talking about metadata and certain things that can happen in the beginning of that process, rather than looking at DAM as kind of the end dumping ground for that content. You just kind of get yourself into some problems that way.
And now, increasingly the DAM, or at least what I'm seeing, is that instead of it being the final asset, your DAMs are they're finals of pieces of those assets, right? And you can, as you're starting to plan out your campaigns and all of that, the conversations should be had around the DAM. And what do we already have? What pieces did we have that we can reuse and then add into this, all right? So that it becomes part of that creation process as well.
Yeah, I would. Yes, I would agree with that, Christy. And one thing that I am doing frequently is I do come in and they say, okay, we're going to put in the finals. And then within maybe 2 months of seeing what the DAM can do, they're starting to talk to their photographers to see if they can tether into the DAM and just upload things, so that that time to value, that time to market it starts to shrink. I did work with a company that it was a sports team, and they took all of that video footage of the games, and in the moment that went into the DAM, the marketing team could grab things, push it out to social, and it was during the game. So that kind of, really squishing it down so that you are just getting those greatest hits, those main beats, and trimming things out. As a librarian, I am always looking at where you can use embedded metadata also. And if you can combine pieces of embedded metadata to extrapolate other pieces of data that can resonate with your user and help them locate things or use things correctly, that was always something that anytime you take human touch out of the asset lifecycle in terms of managing the asset, you are removing an opportunity for error, and you are further speeding up that time until you can share this and connect with your consumer.
Right.
I would add to user frustration on that, right? People don't want to be doing that. They don't want to be tagging content and do that. They want to design, and then they want to get it out and get it to the consumer.
And they don't also, sometimes the person who initiated the whole process with the whole idea does not talk to the person who is responsible from cataloging the outcome of that idea. And they don't capture the same data set that's supposed to be there, but it's always missing. So you can't find it. And when I mentioned that you can take your project metadata to create content for campaign metadata and assign it with automation into your DAM, they said, oh, then I can also see where my asset was used, which campaign it was used. Exactly. If you have your data coming all the way from the campaign time assigned to your assets, and at the same time, you can also drop those existing assets into new campaigns and reuse them, you'll be able to associate all that information in the DAM with your assets, so that you can see that, oh, we use this asset way too much in our campaigns, or what was it that we did 5 years ago in this campaign? You'll be able to pull that up. So the creation process, all the way through management, retrieval, all of those are actually all tied into thinking beyond the DAM, in my opinion. You need to start where ideas start.
Yeah, and going all the way through that asset life cycle, archive and deletion, those retention schedules where you design ahead of time how long you need this to be active, how long it needs to be stored, isn't just for compliance. It's also great for marketing in that you might have some evergreen assets. You're going to have annual campaigns where you might pull something and do a little processing of the photos and then push those back out. You might build templates so that you can put fresh photography or other imagery in and just pop everything together and get it out. Retention schedules are also really good for making sure no one's using stale content. The number of times I've heard people in the last 2 years say nothing with masks has been a lot.
It's really important to understand all those interdependencies, and everything is connected, and that digital asset life cycle is so important to be able to manage. There's a lot of challenges to address, as you all have mentioned. So let's, speaking of challenges, we have another little poll to talk about the challenges that people typically face, and I'm curious to see what our audience has to say about of this. So Theo, can you move to the next poll and then share the results as well? Let's see how this poll is shaking out. The options are data governance, IT involvement. We all know that that can be a challenge at times. Budget is everyone's favorite question and challenge. Data integrity is something that plagues us all. And cross-functional collaboration. We know, again, with those interdependencies and different departments using DAM solutions and all the other components that we showed in the Martech landscape, how do you deal with cross-functional collaboration? Okay, let's see can we share the final results? Okay, wow, not a little surprising, I think, actually. Cross-functional collaboration was the biggest challenge at 59%. That's a pretty significant amount. Then we also have budget at 34%. Obviously, this is a multi-select. And then we have, let's see, data governance, IT involvement, and then data integrity is the last one. Okay, interesting. Interesting. So, we talk about data governance in this poll. There are so many things to consider in terms of data governance, and it impacts so many different areas of the business. What role does governance in a single source of truth play in the DAM world? Let's start with Jessica on this one.
So governance, this is my favorite part of DAM. And it is so foundational to the success of any DAM practice, right? So without it, you can have the best DAM system money can buy, but it will just crumble without a strong governance plan. Governance covers a broad range of things. It's training, it's communications, it's reviews and audits, clearly defined roles and permissions, not just for the people, but for also the systems. Which system is taking ownership of which specific types of data, what's pulling data, what's pushing data to what systems. The content creation guidelines that we talked a little bit of in the asset lifecycle there. Governance it's more than guardrails for asset communication. It helps actually foster collaboration. So it helps address some of those cross-functional pain points that so many people mentioned in that last poll. It streamlines workflows and really empowers, true data-driven decision making, and really kind of takes out a lot of the guesswork and where you need to go next. What's the next thing on your DAM journey? So governance is truly critical. And if it's something that you're thinking about after you've built your system, you started it too late. And I know so many of us have such strong feelings on it. So I'll let some of the others share.
Meg, I know you have some strong feelings here.
I do. Like Jessica, I find it to really make or break your DAM program success. Remember, DAM is not a project, it's a program. You set it up, you have to keep maintaining it. It's a house. Your needs change for the house. You want to add new things. Your appliances need to be updated. You need to keep things running, and you need to make sure that everyone is on board with, keep up with this metaphor, where the coats go versus where the dirty shoes go versus all of that. And governance really does that. like Jessica said, it helps with collaboration. I find it really helps with large organizations in particular, in just making sure that the various user groups who are in the dam and who are connected to the dam through integrations, things like that, that we're all talking to each other. And I mediate some amazing conversations when I'm running governance programs between people who have never been in the same room and have no idea that they define banner differently or things along those lines. You really need that consistent language, because consistency is what makes things searchable. If you don't have consistent data applied, that it's not applied consistently, which means that everyone's on the same page about what something means when it's applied to an asset. If you're not using those things correctly, you can't scale up and you can't start to let different departments use those assets. Collapsing silos means that you have to have that cross department level understanding, and governance really provides that. I say that governance is expensive because you are putting maybe 9, 10, 15 people in a room if you've got a really big dam, or at least a few from different departments. So that time, time is money, comes from different budgets. And it's not sexy. It usually has a reputation for being a bottleneck. And that's when governance isn't designed and being run properly. When it's going the way it should be, it's giving you the ability to quickly pivot. It's giving you the ability to pull in a new use case, to pull in a new user group, and seamlessly combine all of that and reconcile these new use cases into one system.
Meg, you said governance is expensive, but not having governance is even more expensive.
Agreed. Agreed. I heard of once in my career, I've heard of a dam that had to get shut down because there was no owner, there was no governance, and it became the wild, wild west. And the risk was so great to the company that after one lawsuit, they just said, shut it down. We're going to start from scratch. The cost of that, because it's all sunk cost, and the opportunity cost when you're not having people collaborate, not having people understand exactly what's in there.
You both said so much that I'm just, I think all three of us agree on the governance piece, right? As that's that's the key to the dam. And so what I heard there, and just want to highlight, you both talked about, it's really your hygiene, right? It's not just guardrails. Everybody thinks that's like your escalation point or whatnot, but it's that hygiene of the dam, the tool, and all of the assets in it. And it leads to those things like you mentioned about taxonomies, which leads to reuse, right? That cross collaboration. And if we're calling things the same, and you can easily go and retrieve it and find it, and then reuse it. And then what that leads to is efficiency, because of the searching and findability is now more efficient. You're reusing those assets, so you're getting a better ROI on those assets. And then it's also helping with that whole life cycle management that we had just talked about, right? Because when you can then have that governance in place that says, okay, this is where it's at the end of the life cycle, that saves you from being sued using old assets or assets that you no longer have rights to, as well as just having that ability to define, like, again, single source of truth, going back to that of, if you have other systems that are that single source of truth, that helps you govern your content within that dam much easier. We talked about integrating with PIM. If you're a product company, you can use that as your single source of truth, and then that just sends your archive or delete rules into your dam. And you can do that on anything. So yes, you all said so much. It just excited me on governance.
So I just want to jump in here. Thank you for all of that, you guys. We have a question that just came in regards to governance and teams. So the question that came in is, what teams and or colleagues would you recommend for a governance working group?
I
think
say
that
all stakeholders, right?
We all immediately jumped in.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe
All groups being represented in the dam. I think you need to have, at least representation from each of them, because like we said, you may not know how others are using it, and it may be a really critical factor.
And I
Can
think
you
it
give an
comes,
example of one that someone might not think would be important to be in there, but you've found to be valuable, perhaps?
I've had a couple. One was a group that had not been really vocal about needs, and they got left off. I was working with a dam that served 17 lines of business. So this was, sometimes you don't know who's in your dam. And we'll talk about that with analytics. But what happened was we made a change. Our governance working group made a change to the system. We removed a value and added a different one that resonated better and followed industry standard terms. I got a nasty gram a couple days later from a department that we hadn't realized was using that term for a workflow with vendors. So the way that that got resolved was we worked with them to get their metadata needs addressed. And then I found someone from their department who should have been on that working group. We had someone, and I was able to say, this is the person who is representing your group right now on the working group, and they were in attendance when this change was made. You may want to speak with them. And what I got after that was, okay, well, I'm actually going to start attending this instead of that person. And it was the change went from someone who was here in the food chain to someone who was here and was really boots on the ground, working directly with the vendors, working with the dam itself. And that's who you want in there. You need a mix. You need broad knowledge and you need deep knowledge. And you need a system owner, a system representative for any upstream or downstream system so that the changes you make don't negatively impact integrations or conflict with, the source of truth of other systems.
And that's a good point. It doesn't have to, the people involved does not have to be actively working with them also, but may be impacted by the dam. It's also governance helps with the planning, phasing for certain developments that will get you to the ultimate goal of making dam the true enterprise dam. So if you look at the overall landscape of Martech, there are many systems and business units that may not be touching the dam yet, but they should be involved in the future. So uh, they should have a place on the table with you so that you can actually communicate with them, get their needs early enough to plan for the future as well. Because if you are just pulling from your head that, oh, I want to do this first, I want to do this next, if you're not involving the people who may not even be in the plan, then you will get into those cases where who made this change or who decided on this. That's usually what happens when there's no governance and not everybody is involved in the stack.
I think that's super helpful information to, let people understand what we mean by governance and who should be involved. So that was a great question. And I'm conscious of time. We have about 15 minutes left, and I have a couple of things I want to get through. Plus, we have a bunch of questions that have come in. So very quickly, I want to touch on analytics in the dam world. So, what advice do you have around analytics in the dam world, and what role does it play? Can you measure asset performance these days? And what about content ROI?
Content ROI is king. This is one of those moments where you realize why you migrated off of Box and Drive is you now actually understand how things are getting used once someone selects something. And there are some pretty basic analytics that you can use together to understand how things are going, to tell that story. What is your asset's journey? And with content ROI, how can you get that price per use? How can you understand, one thing with governance is you do search audits. You understand what people are typing into that top bar to make sure that your metadata reflects that, but you also use that to understand what kind of content people are looking for. Do you have a gap? what is performing better. If you're integrating with a CMS, you can understand what's getting more clicks. If you're using CDN links, you can understand what's getting more clicks. And if you do channel specific CDN links, you can see which channels are getting more traffic for that asset. There's a few other, good KPIs, how they're performing. Is a particular type of asset lending itself to a specific channel? Who's using it? Are the features we're supporting getting use is also a really interesting one, but it's not every dam can give you that information. And just getting downloads and shares by user department. What's getting moved downstream? If you've got an integration downstream, you can see which assets are getting pulled, and then you can possibly see how they're getting used. And yeah, there's lots of ways to do it.
And I'm sure, like anything, there's a maturity model. You want to start with, understanding the analytics around certain content assets, and then really digging down into that. So thank you for that. As we talk about so many different elements of the Martech stack and DAM, one of the things, of course, we want to talk about is the integration of all those solutions. How do all those pieces of the puzzle get tied together? Because that is actually, one of the biggest challenges. I'm going to turn this over to Belant, who's going to talk a little bit about the one-tag solution and integration, and then we will wrap up the webinar with a few questions and kind of tie in some of the main points here with some of the questions that have come in from the audience. So Belant, I'll let you take this and talk about, how to connect the dam to the broader ecosystem and that ever-evolving Martech stack.
Yeah. So we talked about so many different aspects of how complex this Martech stack and maintaining a dam is. It involves governance, it involves putting a lot of these cross-functional teams together, making everybody talk in the same language, leveraging taxonomies correctly, putting processes in place, all of those. But what really works well is when all those things line up, the systems talking to each other will simplify the process, because automation and the integrations will simplify and enforce the rules that were set up to communicate between these systems and how data is exchanged between these systems. So over the years, I worked personally on building all these integrations between different systems. And many of these are lengthy projects that are budget constrained, first of all, time constrained, requirements change too fast that you can never get to the end product, because integration, by the time it's done, it takes forever to complete it. The requirements have changed and you have to do something else to it. So if you think about all of these, we realize that it's really beneficial to the system integrator, us, that we work as services team to constantly go to every customer and ask them, do you have a budget for this so I can build this? So we changed our mindset. We said that how can we do this so that we build these integrations one time and can be used everywhere else with ease. And OneTech is our solution for that. And with OneTech, we have built these connectors to most of these systems that dams interact with. Because we came from the dam industry, we centered everything around the dam and considered the movement of large files, movement of metadata with files, the product information that needs to be associated with content, all of those use cases, and built our solution, our integration platform, based on all these requirements that have been built over the years by our customers, potentially over 20 some years, until we came up with that idea that this is not maintainable. This is not something people can keep on paying us to work on. So OneTech provides that solution with pre-built template flows so that you can find a recipe for your problem or for your solution. And these recipes are so flexible that you can implement your business logic inside those recipes and change them on the fly very quickly after governance, obviously, so that you can have less time for working with system integrators or consultants or developers, but more your business, what the dam needs, how business needs to use their assets. And that's something you can look at our website, onetech.com, and look at the benefits that we listed there. But this whole discussion, how you put together the Martech puzzle, is actually can be a lot simpler with respect to the technical aspect of it. The governance and other aspects that we talked are still there, and they are not something that you can address with technology. You need people, processes to make sure that all of those are in place before you put your plan together to build these integrations. And again, I will go back to what Meg said. She said she has seen a lot of wasted efforts in integrations also that didn't give the value. So you need to have that governance and the thinking head to put together a great plan that will give you the best ROI. And with hopefully OneTech, we will be able to increase that ROI and shorten the time to get to it, as technology should not be the bottleneck for getting to the business goals.
Great.
Rika?
Thanks for explaining that. I think, it's really important to talk about the ROI of that, and that technology alone doesn't solve all of this. We want to enable the technology to power the business. So thank you for that overview of OneTag and how it works. In the last couple minutes, I do want to just pose one of the other questions that came in through the chat. And this one is from Courtney. Would you explain the taxonomy system mentioned by Meg? So Meg, can you just dig a little deeper into that for Courtney?
Sure. There are a few out of the box that are compliant in all the ways that you need them to be, to make sure that you can plug and play into your system, which is the whole point. And really what happens is you manage your taxonomies, all of your structured data in one system, and that system has a lot of checks and balances, and that system has a lot of flexibility, and in addition to that, it has good structure for you. If you're doing ontologies, it's a little more flexible. If you're doing taxonomy, it's got that good hierarchical structure, in some cases flat. And really what this gives you is this souped up tool that allows you to get a use case that is a little complex. A lot of out of the box dams don't have synonyms as an immediate built-in. If you've got preferred terms, if you've got coffee mug and coffee cup, having some way to relate those. If your team uses, your organization uses coffee mug, allowing someone to search for coffee cup and get coffee mug is really important. And that system is maintained on its own. It would be, if we went back to the OneTag slide, this would be something else that would get plugged in, right, Boulant? And then that's something that can disseminate.
Right.
And one of the nice things is you can have custom specific things for one system, and you can still manage them in there and just plug them into, have a business rule for using those with one system. And then they're available for when you might have another system that could use it, and they're centrally governed.
That's the key there, is without that taxonomy management, even if you do it on basic terms, not use a sophisticated taxonomy management system, all of your integrations, talking between systems and talking the same language becomes possible. Otherwise, integrations are just calling APIs between systems, but the main challenge with many integrations is that translation of the language between the two systems. You wouldn't realize that by the time a product is ideated and released on Amazon, let's say, the amount of name changes it happens, and that name changes remains in those systems across the board, and you cannot tie the data together after some time, and people have typos and other things. A taxonomy management system can help you, especially if it's something that can be tied into many other different systems, that can be part of your governance model, that everything gets kind of centralized over there so that you all talk in the same language.
Taxonomy is a living thing. So collapsing silos and centralizing your taxonomy can really help keep it flexible and keep everyone using, improving that metadata integrity.
Said
Which then
it,
goes
forget
back
it.
and improves the collaboration that everyone said they're having trouble with, right? That cross-team collaboration.
So many interdependencies here in the world of Martech and DAM, and I think this discussion has been great. Unfortunately, we are reaching the top of the hour, and there are so many questions that we were unable to get to. We will get answers to those questions and send them out to you. We will also strive to have another webinar, hopefully with Henry Stewart. Thank you so much for hosting us. And I just want to thank everyone on the panel. This was such an insightful discussion, so many nuances, so many things that we could really dig into. I'm sure we could have a session on each of these topics and each of these individual questions that we asked. But thank you to our panel of experts, and thank you to Henry Stewart for enabling this webinar. And if you have any questions about CyanGate or OneTag, or have any questions for the panelists, you can find them on LinkedIn. And again, we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.